Hello, and welcome to Unlocking Health with Dr. Alexi. And today I'm here with Veronica Hollingsworth, and she is a relationship coach. Veronica, I'm thrilled to have you here today. Your message to the masses is a really important message, and I can't wait for you to explain deeper what you do and how it can impact our health and healing processes. So have at
Wonderful.
it.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoy being here and speaking about this because, yes, I do believe it's a fundamental key in our well-being is to look at our relationships with, the people around us, society, and most importantly, ourselves and our spiritual relationship with the divine. So thank you so much for having me. And I definitely honor what you do, bringing awareness to this connection between our relationships and our physical health, and how that manifests in our bodies. So a little bit about me. So I started out actually as a health coach and I became certified. And as I started working with people, particularly women, I realized that a lot of their health issues were based from the problems that they had in their relationships. A lot of times they're intimate relationships. So I found myself coaching them through, relationship issues in order for them to see the outcomes in their health. And so after a few years of that, I switched tracks and I decided, okay, I'm going to just focus on the relationships, right? Get to the bottom of things. And so I became a certified relationship coach, and I realized how much of their relationship issues were based off of their beliefs in their life, right? Their life purpose, their spirituality, where they were going, what meaning did their life have, right? And so that led to tying in my skills that I've had all my life that I hadn't developed until about 8 years ago, which was my medical intuitive abilities. And so I decided to really hone those. And so I became a certified medical intuitive as well. So I brought that in. And the result is that I've been able to truly see literally like an energetic map of how our relationships impact our health. Right. And everything from our relationship with life to our relationship with our beloveds and our children and our parents and our work, people, and how that translates into energy in the body. Right. Because especially through our emotions, because, everything is energy and emotions are literally energy in motion. And if we keep, ignoring these energies, they start coming down through our mental bodies or emotional bodies. We have 11 bodies, believe it or not. In the yogic tradition, they say that we have up to 11 bodies, and there's other schools of thought that believe that we have 10 or 6 or 9 but the point is that we are more than just our physical casing right here, right? And so as we go through life, we accumulate all of this energy, right, in the thoughts, in the form of thoughts, in the form of emotions, in the form of beliefs, and they accumulate in our energy bodies. And those that require our attention start filtering down, right, in the form of, say, like repeated thoughts. They're kind of stuck in our mental body. Emotions, they're kind of stuck in our emotional body where we constantly feel a certain way, even if we don't understand the mechanism behind it. And so if we, as we do in our Western society, if we ignore them, if we tamp them down, if we, stuff them somewhere under the rug and pretend that they're not there, eventually all of these things that are stuck in our energetic bodies filter down to our physical bodies. And they try to get our attention through things such as fatigue or disturbed sleep. Constant state of stress, tremors, tics, hair falling out, imbalances, right? And so that's our body trying to speak to us, trying to tell us, hey, there's something you need to look at here. So in our Western world, a lot of times we'll pay attention to those things, right? And we'll say, oh, well, I have something going on. They say my hair is falling out, right? Or I'm gaining weight, unexplained reason, or I'm constantly stressed and I can't relax at night and I can't sleep anymore. So a lot of times we've been trained to look at those things as, oh, that's the problem, right? And so then we go seek a traditional doctor who will look at that problem and try to fix it, right? But in reality, it's a symptom. By the time it's gotten to our body, it's a symptom of a relationship right? That we're having with ourselves through our thoughts, our emotions, or a relationship that we're having with somebody else, or with even a concept, right? What is my relationship with my idea of, say, my 9 to 5 job? You know, what is my relationship to my idea of what government is, right? And what the role is in our life. So everything is a relationship.
I didn't even think about it that way. I was just thinking physical relationships with others, but like you said, how
It's
you relate to the
everything.
world around you. Absolutely.
Exactly. So everything has an impact on our energy bodies because we're moving through life, right? And everything comes through our energetic bodies first before it finally hits our physical body. So if you can think in terms of, say, for example, you have your hair falling out, right? You go to your doctor, you get your blood panel back, everything looks fine, but your hair's still falling out, right? Ask yourself, what is going on in my life that is impacting me negatively, right? Sometimes hair falling out is a sign of like we're pulling our hair out, right? Frustration. What are we frustrated with at a very basic level? And this is where alternate modalities such as meditation, journaling, going to therapy, all of these things help us to figure out, what is going on with ourselves and our health beyond just the physical symptom of, say, our body, our hair falling out. So, I guess to kind of give you an idea of how I started developing my skill set, right? It started as a child. I had the best teacher, and that teacher was my mom. So my mother, she's amazing. She's crossed over as of 2019, but I still talk with her, and she's still around. But her life from the very, very beginning was a demonstration of how relationships impact health. So she went through her life pretty much as a hypochondriac, right? And so I grew up watching how certain events in her life would impact her physical health, right? If she got into an argument with my dad, I had a very toxic marriage. So that happened all the time. She'd hit the bed. She'd be exhausted. She'd be stressed out. Her adrenals would stop functioning correctly. She had energy imbalances all left and right, right? But she was definitely one of those women that was trained to look for help to doctors. So she had a whole roster of medical doctors and specialists through her entire life, right? That she would go to whenever she had something going on. Now, I quickly noticed a pattern where it was like, okay, so if Dr. Y wasn't listening to her reasoning behind why she was feeling this way, she'd go to the Dr. X who would listen to her reasons. And then she'd get results to that doctor, but not this doctor. And so she had her little group of specialists that she would go see. And I quickly realized, okay, so she has made an art form out of diagnosing herself, right, to a point where she knew who to go to get the results and the support that she needed. So that, yet, she had blood panels and results and everything that would show an imbalance, that would show, that, oh, you've got, rheumatoid arthritis, or, she was diagnosed bipolar. From the time I was a teenager, she got the Prozac and the bipolar, diagnosis. And so she went for about 40 years believing that she was truly bipolar, and I witnessed that pattern in her life, right? So she would go through the ups and downs. She would definitely showcase the manic stages and then the depressive stages. But I would also notice that they were very much triggered by her relationships with her children, her parents, her neighbors, her friends, her ideas of how society owed her something, or how she was, indebted to society in some way. So as I grew up in this environment, I very quickly began to intuit, okay, so no, this is, Mom, you're having a rheumatoid arthritis flare because you got into an argument with Grandma 2 weeks ago. And so I started being able to connect these things, and pretty soon I was doing that with everyone that I was coming across, right, as I grew up. And so I was able to pinpoint, okay, so, so you're having, GI issues. What upset you? Who pissed you off last week? That kind of thing. And along with that information, I was also getting things like, oh, well, you're deficient in magnesium, or, maybe go try more potassium, or increase your green vegetables, or stop eating meat, or quit the carbs. So I'd be getting information. So I thought this was normal. I thought everyone could do this, right? Because to me, it just kind of came
I
naturally.
wish.
I know.
I wish.
I know. So it took me a long time to finally realize that, okay, I need to develop this, right? And I need to, and I went out and I realized that, okay, other people have this ability. They're called medical intuitives, and there's certifications and trainings that you can do in order to be able to serve people in a professional manner, right, through this ability. So I went through that training, and and it's just really been impressive to me how blatantly obvious it is that,
Right.
everything that shows up in our physical body has an emotional root to it. It has a mental root. It has an energetic root, and there's different ways in which we absorb these things into our emotional bodies, right? A lot of times it could be because, say, we have weak boundaries, right? And we come across someone, we pick up their energy, and then before you know it, our back hurts the way that theirs hurts because we're empathetic, where we're an empath. There's ways to work around that, so you recognize that, well, it's not me, it's them, and I'm picking it up because I have healing abilities, right? And they're, I don't know what they're, but I went to the doctor and they couldn't find anything, right? So stuff like that is very, very common, especially as people are waking up to their abilities, right? I mean, we're all going through an ascension, worldwide. Everyone is waking up to their higher abilities, to their more heart-centered approach to life, and we're all trying to figure it out as we go. So, so that's, so that gives you an idea of how I personally, approach the whole aspect of relationships and how it affects the body. And let's see, I wrote some notes so that, we could kind of stay on track and not just go all over the place. So with my mom, I will have to say that right before she passed, for about maybe 5 years before she passed, she actually managed to basically cure herself of the bipolar diagnosis that she had just through her spiritual growth and her spiritual awakening. It floored everyone. And she was so proud, that she'd tell everyone, I am no longer bipolar. And she passed at 72. So,
Good for her. I mean,
exactly.
at least ending released, right? That breaks some of
note.
those generational and maternal cords that would go on the next time. So
Exactly. And so, I'm just so incredibly proud of her for having reached that, equilibrium, balance, and the healing that had to happen, and the minute that she started truly working on forgiveness around her parents and healing her inner child around her parents, the bipolar symptoms went away.
Just go away.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So I'm familiar with the 11 bodies. I've done work with tuning forks as far as clearing energies. Even before I got into the whole energy thing, I didn't realize exactly what I was learning. When you see somebody, what do those energetic disturbances look like? And I want to clarify for people that some of these, energy masses that you see do not necessarily manifest into something just because we see them. It's an energetic disturbance that if it's not taken care of, may progress to something more significant down the road. But what do you see when you look at people?
So typically, now I only always do this with permission, right, of the person that I'm reading. And this is one thing that I always am adamant about, is make sure that whoever you go to or whatever has permission to read you, right? If someone comes up to you and they say, oh, I'm reading this and the other, and you didn't give them permission, don't take it in, okay? Because this is divinely guided work, okay? So I only ever always work with, their permission. So the way that I do the work is I literally tap into the quantum field, into, their higher self, my guides, their guides. And then I'm shown literally like a holographic map of their body. And after I see their physical body, I then see the different energies around their body as it relates to the energy centers of the body, right? So, for example, I had one person who, I was doing a scan and I saw a black cube right on their brain. And I was like, okay, so there's something here, right? And so I asked for more information, and I was given the information that he had huge blockages around religion and his mother, right? So his crown chakra energies were completely blocked off. And it was because of that black cube. And I got, okay, so it's, he's got religious conflicts that were put there in the past because they showed up on the left-hand side of his scan.
Mm-hmm.
Around his mother. And so that energy center right there also had other issues with his root chakra energy, along with his sacral. And so I saw that interplay that showed that, okay, he's got some generational security stuff around that is cutting him off from his own divine guidance. So after I did the scan, I went and delivered the findings, and he shared with me that he had brain surgery. So that black square was also showing the scar tissue, the brain surgery, so his conflict of having to tamp down his incoming wisdom direct from source that got all scrambled up by his religious upbringing and the conflict that he had with his mother around it manifested in a tumor. Mm-hmm. He needed to have it removed, so hence the brain surgery. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that does manifest if, this gentleman was in his 80s, a lifetime of ignoring it, of trying to tamp it down, of trying to not really work with it, of just, towing the line and being the good man, right? The good son for his whole life of just trying to deal with it in the only way that he knew how, which was to ignore it.
What a lot of baggage to have to unknowingly have to carry your whole life.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I typically see things like symbols, like the black cube, to signify a strong blockage. I see dots or black little bits of energy where there might be some disturbance, but it's not really strong. I also see all the beneficial energy. Like, for example, a lot of times I'll see flowers around the crown chakra to signify that a person has a very strong affinity to flower essences, for example, and that they can bring in essential oils and work with the flower essences and herbs to help them maintain their good health, so during these energy scans, it's really a map, right? It's an informational map of where you're at the time of the scan that shows what influences are at play and how the energy interacts throughout your body. So after that energy scan, then I get information directly from the major organs and whatever other systems want to pipe up and say something. So I will literally talk to your brain and say, okay, brain, do you have a message, for so-and-so? And, if there's a message, it'll come through, like a lot of times, like, for example, I had a lady come through with the endocrine system came through, which I typically don't really scan for unless there's a need for it, and I was told she's angry. She needs to deal with that anger so that her liver can stop hanging on to that anger so that it can release the hormones that are starting to back up in there that were causing her unexplained weight gain and her fatigue.
Yeah.
So you kind of see how everything's related, right? So without addressing the anger, yes, she could go and do a liver detox, but the anger would still be there. And so the cycle would still repeat. So it's always important to be able to look at the emotion behind the physical condition that has manifested, right? Because we can only do so far with the physical body without at some point addressing what's coming up. Right. So, for example, if you go get a massage and you're not used to it, you're going to be releasing energy and emotions probably a good week after your massage because they've let loose from your tissues all this energy that has been kind of stuck there. Right. And all of a sudden you find that you're mad at, your best friend that you haven't talked to for 12 years. Mm-hmm. And it's coming up that week of your massage. Why? Because they let something loose, and so you have to face it. So when we can stop thinking of ourselves as separate little compartmentalized things, right? The way that we've been taught in the Western world to do, and we approach a more holistic view of who we are, what we are, how we function, then we tend to have a better handle on our health overall.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. I wanted to just interject there for anyone that's listening. this may sound a little woo-woo. It's not. Just like that gentleman, he had a spiritual block. This, looking at the energy around you has really little to do with, quote, your religious beliefs. And so I know a lot of people think things like yoga and meditation that move energy through the body go against their religious beliefs. And ultimately, really, all of it is the same form of connecting with a higher spirit. And some people may call it meditation, others may call it prayer. It's all the same thing. And so what you're doing is still just working with the energies that we try and tap into when we're doing any of those other things, be it praying or whatever. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes, no, and that's a wonderful point. And in fact, I'm glad you brought it up because I spoke about my mother, right? She's an avid Catholic 100% her whole life, and the way that she healed her bipolar wasn't through meditation and yoga. Oh, heck no, she would never do those things. It was through her own spiritual searching, through her own religion, okay, her prayers, her novenas, going to, confession, all of these things. She was doing the work through her preferred channel of, her Catholicism.
Yep.
So it's all energy, and it's all love, really. Her love for herself and her love for her family is what eventually pushed her to finally heal.
Now, I know you're looking at those energetic disturbances. There are some intuitives that try and, break down, be it shamanic or Reiki or whatever those energetic areas. Do you just try and have the person more mentally and through the vital body break those down so it's more permanent? Because I find that if someone physically tries to move it for me, it always comes back because I haven't addressed what's going on deeper in.
Yes. So the law of free will is over everything, right? So if a person truly wants to let that thing go, okay, I can show them and assist them in clearing it by showing them how to work with their own energy. So I'm an energy healer as well. So I know how to go in and clear energy blocks for people, but I always do it with them one-on-one live as a demonstration and a guide, so I literally speak to them and say, okay, now envision this process and envision putting the energy out there. You have to put the energy of anger or whatever in there and visually move it out of your body. So I literally train them on how to do it themselves. First and foremost, but they have to want to do it. I can't do it for them. If they come to me with this, oh, you can heal me. Nope, I can't. I can show you how you can heal yourself.
And I think a good way for people that aren't familiar with energy to understand it is if you walk into a room, you can sense the energy in a room. Is it negative? Is it angry? Is it positive? Even internally, one thing that I've started doing recently is doing a little Facebook Live every morning to get people to sit with their bodies. Just 5 minutes, sit, feel where's tight. I notice, especially in this day and age where it's a very toxic world out there politically, and, there's a lot of divisiveness and divisiveness. And do you feel your blood pressure going up when you think about a certain thing? I mean, that's, again, your body's response to the relationship, like you said, to whatever's happening around you. So we're all familiar with energy. We just don't know that's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I usually tell my newcomers to this, it's like I get them tuned into breath work, because breath work is really the fastest way to get you to learn how to really tune into your body. Right. So the simple exercise of breathing in for a count of 4, and then breathing out for a count of 8, and noticing that you feel calmer afterward is one way of regulating your body through the energy, right, of breath work. And then if you do the opposite, if you inhale longer than when you exhale, you have all of a sudden you're ready to take on the world, right? Instead of relax, you're fired up. So just by doing those simple exercises, depending on what it is that they want to tackle. Say, for example, they're trying to go to sleep. Okay, then do the breathing where the exhale is longer than the inhale. If you're ready to go to a meeting and you want to show up as your best and you need to be fired up, do the opposite. That's a very elemental way to get to understand how you can influence your body through your breath work, your intention, and the energy that you put into it. You know, another simple exercise is notice when you get goosebumps. That is totally energy talking to you. You know, if the AC didn't, if the AC didn't kick in and you didn't, you know, it's not an atmospheric change, you know, environmental change. You walk into that room and you start getting goosebumps, or somebody says something and you get goosebumps, that's energy. You know, so that's a great way of getting people to tune in, you know, to realize that they are energetic beings first and foremost.
Right.
Yeah.
I find that it can be a hard concept for some people, but you know, definitely supportive, you know, with anything. So the whole body is synergistic. And so I look at it and I agree that you, let me stop for a second. I look at it this way. I'm sure you would probably agree with me that, you know, really we have different layers. So the supramental, the vital, the mental, and then the physical body. And so not only does the physical body work synergistically together, you know, so, you know, the heart, the brain, all the organs, the skin, everything works together as one system. You can't divide it. So do all of the whole bodies work together. And so even though I work primarily with supporting the physical body, until you start tapping into the upper bodies, true healing really cannot occur. So
yes. Now, the good thing is, and this is something that I always tell my clients, because sometimes they'll get overwhelmed, right? Because they see their map, they see everything that's wrong with them, right? And they're like, oh my God, how can I tackle this? You know, because these are issues from my childhood. So they tend to want to get overwhelmed, right? And one thing I always tell them is like, no, this is just like taking a cake, right? And breaking down the ingredients in the cake. You still have the cake, it's still you. Exactly. You know, if you change one little thing here, it's going to have that domino effect where it's going to positively affect the other things that we see in the map, right? So for example, say that I've got someone that has, you know, anger issues with their parents, and they've got hormonal imbalance here, and, you know, they got GI stuff over there and everything. And I tell them, okay, so start drinking dandelion tea, clear out your liver. That's it. Start there. You know, and so then it's so funny because they just take that one little step, right, with the intent that, okay, I'm going to tackle this, I'm going to take it one step at a time, and I want better health, right? And then before you know it, 2 weeks out, they're telling me that they made up with the person that was causing them problems. You know, it's all connected.
Right.
It's all connected. So yeah, don't, again, you know, we tend to think in terms of, oh my gosh, all of these are separate things, right? And we have to tackle each one. And no, it's just one little change has that domino effect that carries over to everything else because you're all connected.
Now, do you think there's a priority of relationships that's more important to someone? You know, do you feel like physical relationships take priority over mental relationships, you know, with outside forces, or
it really does, that piece really depends on the person, you know, that is coming to get healed and what it is that they're ready to hear as well. You know, like if they're hyper focused on the relationship with their spouse, right? And that's the only thing that they're hearing right now, then spirit will a lot of times guide me to just tell them about that and what they can do to start there. But a lot of times any changes there also affect everything else. So it really doesn't matter. You know, it's just really on what it is that the person is wanting to hear or willing to hear, you know, or feel that they have some power over, you know, some say over how they can influence this for the better.
So could someone, if they're in a toxic marriage, that marriage could be making them sick, I would assume.
I saw that a lot.
Yeah. This is going to sound bad. Maybe I'll need to edit this part out, but the mother wound, right, tends to be a very big thing. And I hate to put so much of that on mothers because really, I feel like most of the time families really are trying to do the best they can. And we all come into every relationship with our own baggage that we already have. So I don't want to blame things on a parent, but do you tend to find when you're reading somebody that most of those wounds are coming from the mother versus the father, or they tend to be pretty equal, on both sides generationally? Does that make
So
sense?
far, I would say that they're pretty even.
Okay.
And yeah, and so the way that I usually see it is, that I'd say like there's a blockage on the left-hand side that shows that it's the past, and it's mother energy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's the level of information that I get. And then when I deliver the reading and we actually talk with the client, they'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, that makes a ton of sense because da 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 da, they go into the story. And that's where they can figure out, okay, well, I can heal that part of it. Right. And so it doesn't have to be, a whole thing of you have to heal your entire relationship with your mother from the pre-womb time, or whatever, to now. And it's like, no, it can just be that one time that she went to the store and she lost track of you and you felt lost.
Right.
And that left a trauma,
Right.
or whatever. And it's just working on that one little thing that comes up because, this work is guided by their higher self and spirit, and they know, exactly what it is they can hear, that they can work with. Just start here. And that's it. Yeah.
So if someone were to work with you, what does that generally look like? I mean, does it start with, you just kind of feeling them out for, where they are emotionally with things and how their physical relationships are, and then you do a reading, or how do you start with everybody?
So typically, we just have a short conversation over DM and just, kind of get, okay, what's going on with you? What do you want out of it? What are you ready to shift?
Mm-hmm.
If they're willing and open and able to take in information, then yeah, I'll work with you. If they come to me with the rescue me mentality, can't work with you, sorry, because you're not going to like what's going to be shown, exactly. So once that's established, then yeah, we just set the time for me to do the reading. I do the reading. I write up a report so that everything is written down for them to refer to, and then we deliver it. And yeah, so I also offer like a meditation package that teaches them how to work with their own energy, so that they don't constantly have to be plugged into me or whatever. But I also do offer energy healings where we do work one-on-one, for more specific things or more stubborn things, more chronic conditions, that kind of stuff. And that can be a level of support anywhere from 1 week to 6 months. It just depends on what the person needs or wants. Yeah.
Okay. So you can accomplish quite a bit in one session, but some people may choose to go on longer. I mean, obviously we probably all have a ton to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. And the best way is, like you said, people will DM you or do it through Zoom for virtual.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It's all virtual through Zoom or yeah. And the other thing too is, I was going to say something and my mind just went totally blank. Oh, what was it? Okay, sorry, you're going to have to edit that out.
Well, that's because I kept cutting you off. I'm sorry. And here you said you had all these notes you made and I just took off.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It'll come to me.
So what do you have on your notes? So were there anything on your notes that we didn't touch on?
Let's see. We talked about that. No, I guess just, for the point of curiosity, right? So a lot of times based off of knowledge in the medical intuitive field, right? Commonalities that we see, manifestations that we see that typically mean one thing or another. So typically, say, for example, you've got symptoms all on the right side of your body. Mm-hmm. That typically shows that you've got problems with male energy in your life, okay? Or with external influences in your life. If you've got problems with your left side, that typically means problems with the female archetype or female energy in your life, either how you're manifesting if you're a female, how comfortable you are with your female role in life, your feminine energies, or also stuff that comes from within you. How much do you trust your intuition? How much do you trust yourself? Are you tamping down your creative energies? That kind of stuff. Right. And then also typically, so issues with our cosmic space, right? Our ability to take up space in the world, our ability to feel secure, and our foundation shows up in bone issues, so arthritis, So
if you don't feel secure and you don't feel like you have a support network or a tribe, or that you have value, that's what's going to manifest in the,
Correct. Yep. And so a lot of times immobility issues due to arthritis are because you've lost your direction in life and you don't know which way to go.
And purpose is so important.
Very much so. Yeah, yeah. And so that's typically bone issues. And then the soft tissues and organs have a lot to do with our thoughts and our belief processes. So a lot of times I'll see faulty belief systems that are in place that impact the soft tissues. The biggest one is the lungs, and that has to do with grief. How we process grief, because grief is a fact of life, right? If you love, you're going to experience grief. The thing is that gets us, that causes lung issues a lot of times, is our beliefs around grief and loss and how we handle grief. If we're not proactive and dealing with it in a healthy way, it'll show up in the lung area. And so then the fluids in the body, the lymph, the blood, a lot of times those are how we deal with our emotions.
And they become stagnant if you're
if you're just not dealing with your emotions very well. So those are just very broad overview, of generalities that we typically see, and the correlations between our emotions, our mental faculties, and our belief in our right to be in the world,
right,
how they show up in our body.
Absolutely. I think it's tough. And, we all suppress our emotions. Number one, we may have been taught that we needed to, right? We had to follow some guidelines that were presented to us. We were shushed or whatever it may be, where we couldn't express. And so, for myself, I know I struggled for a long time keeping things pent up inside. And I thought I dealt with it because it doesn't affect me on a day-to-day basis. And like I said, as I've started to unpack all of that, I can feel the shoulders slowly starting to loosen up. My liver is detoxing better on its own without a whole bunch of extra support. So even if you feel like you've handled things and traumas in your past life, you may have just suppressed your feeling to that emotion. So you've really got to sit with it and let that emotion kind of consume you for a little bit. And you had mentioned the grief aspect, and I'll tell you on a side note, I just think it's kind of interesting for me that when I started delving more into this energy aspect about things, my ability to handle grief did a 180, because I no longer feel like I'm losing that person. I know that energy is still there. It's still with me. And so, honestly, it's always a better thing to not be trapped in this physical body. So I don't grieve anymore, because I just feel like now that energy can be anywhere and everywhere instead of trapped in a certain spot. So that's neat.
Yeah. Oh, and I remember what I was going to say. So the first thing is that, yes, to do this work and to truly heal, it requires a level of self-honesty that is just completely radical, right? You can't fool yourself. It only lasts for a little while before something smacks you upside the head and you realize, oh, I've been trying to fool myself, right? So radical self-honesty definitely is one of those things that is key to truly heal. Okay.
So how does someone know how to achieve that?
Typically, whenever you start meditating, right, and you start having a thought and you want to just kind of, let's just stick that one under the rug. Okay, that tells you that's something you should look at.
Right.
If you catch yourself at that point, that's radical self-honesty. If you're trying to make excuses for yourself in a dialogue with someone, and you kind of see where you're trying to weasel out of something, right? Well, radical self-honesty, bring it back, pay attention to it. It's literally like reparenting yourself, and if you say you have a toddler or a kid that's trying to get away with murder, you're the parent and you're like, no, and it's really just that ability to observe yourself, which is one of the things that meditation teaches first, is you observe yourself as an outsider, right? And so if you can engender that ability, and just have a lot of compassion for yourself when you catch yourself doing these things, then you'll know it's safe. It's okay to be radically self-honest with yourself. Nothing bad is going to happen, and you're just going to uncover more gold that you can work with, because it's all you. It's all part of your growth. And so so along with that, the other thing that I wanted to mention too is that as a healer, my goal is to ensure that you become your own healer and guru. Everything, all of my programs, all of my processes are precisely to get you to where you no longer will need me. And so if you've got the
That well.
self-honesty in place, yeah. Yeah. So if you've got the self-honesty in place and you learn how to work with your own energy, you've got two of the biggest ingredients right there to help yourself.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful having you on. How can people reach you?
So they can go to my Facebook page, Veronica Hollingsworth Coaching, and you'll find me there, and you can just send me a DM.
Wonderful. So I'll put everything in the links below. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out with me or to hop on your Facebook page. And I look forward to hopefully continuing this conversation because I think
Absolutely.
just go really deep.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. And I can talk about this all day.
Well, that's good. It's your passion, right? And when it's your passion, it's the ceiling is not a limit anymore, right? There's no limit. So thank you. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and your thoughtfulness today.
Thank you.
And that's it. Thank you.
All
Take
right.
care.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.